Right, so the latest version of ParkMap is ParkMap 7.3. Right, one of the few things that is new, I'm going to start with what's new, and I'm going to show you some of the functionality that hopefully you're either familiar with, or if you're not, then you will be after this webinar. So the latest version is 7.3. It hasn't been rolled out to all the users just yet, only a few of you. As we're trying to assess basically this version to make sure it runs properly and there is no problem with it. There's quite a lot of changes that have been done, especially with new things like the API for the TRO discovery from the Department for Transport and other projects that will require local authority to share the information in the easiest possible way, which is probably through API. So I will mention a bit more about this and I'll show you what we've done. But there's also some improvement that even if you do not want to share your data just yet, will be relevant to you. So what is new is this. If you click on ParkMap, before you had just the exit button. Now you got more option and quite actually useful tool there in a ParkMap menu. If you click on it, if you click on something else, you get something else. But if you click on ParkMap, you'll be able to access the manual as well as the release notes, which should load a document telling you what we've done. So the latest upgrades for ParkMap and associated TraffWeb, and all the bugs fixes we made and the other things that you may have asked during the user group that have been added to the system. If you got any query and you can't find the support, Buchanan Computing support email, you can just click on Buchanan Computing here, then click on support, and from here you can send us an email directly. Now, if it's more about training, it's me you would like to contact, then do not hesitate, click on training, and I change it to training, and you'll be able to email me about your training requirements. And I offered a lot of different things from remote training like this one, except it's more like one-on-one, so we'll be able to talk to each other and I'll be able to answer your query more particularly. And we can do that together, or I can come to you for a day and do a training course. Right, so these are two new options I will recommend to have a look at once you upgrade it to this latest version. So as always, ParkMap's got 3 different access modes. At the moment, I'm on the view-only mode, it's a view mode, and above it, you got edit, and above everybody else, you got the supervisor. So let me show you a couple of things that have been added, and that is new. Right, and one of the brand new things, so you already know, I hope, that you can right-click anywhere, and a lot of tools that are very useful for ParkMap, such as reporting, querying the data, selecting the data, the zooming options, the Google Street View link, as well as changing the time of enforcement to check what was enforceable a couple of weeks ago at a particular time, as well as bringing some of your proposed order you might be working on onto your display, and also searching for a street. Now, I'm going to show you some of the options, but one of the most basic tools that I hope you're all familiar with is to query the data, to use the information button in order to find out what is the time of enforcement of the restriction you have on your screen, or for that matter, what they are at all. If you click on them, here is a brand new redesigned information dialog. So it is a lot smaller than the previous one that was starting to become bigger and bigger. And because I've got a small screen on my laptop, hopefully you guys are using ParkMap on the desktop, or at least with an external screen, so you can enjoy a much larger screen resolution than mine currently. But I had a problem with this information dialog box getting so big, it was taking the entire screen size, and we couldn't add any more information without losing it outside my screen resolution. So we redesigned it to make it quite condensed, where you've got all the information sorted in a more meaningful fashion. So let me show you how it works. So first, you've got all the item details, everything about the restriction, what you're looking at. It's a resident permit, currently, I've got on my screen, that belongs to a proposed, a confirm order, sorry, it's a confirm here, a confirm order called 2019-8/01 that have been enforceable since the 1st of April 2019, and it's a permanent order with no revocation date. Here's my time of enforcement, as well as more information about the type of resident permit required to park there. And all this was in the previous information dialog box, so that's not new, it's just been condensed. What is new is those buttons been moved from the bottom to the top, so if you click on print, that should show you all the information contained in the database about that particular restriction. Not a lot, actually. It's not very interesting. More data is a useful button for some of you that use additional field in your ParkMap system. Oops, let me re-click on that. I've just lost my, there we go. So more data is completely bespoke to your own system. Some people use it in order to put the conditions of your road markings, as well as the width or the variation within a TSRGD allowed for a particular type of road marking, or any other things that could be related to this. So if it was a pay and display or payment parking type of restriction, maybe the tariff codes could be put there. It'd be quite interesting to have that information within your ParkMap system. But all this obviously is up to you to customize. What's been moved as well, so the schedule number, the combined multiple object, I'll come back to those ones because they're important later, but they're not ticked, you can't change that. The length used to be further down, and that's, for those that did training with me, I insisted on this, it's the length of the restriction following the curb line. It's not the length as per your traffic orders. So if your traffic order says it's for 20 meters, this probably will say 20.7 because it follows the curb. So it might be a little bit longer or less for that matter. Now you have that information. So what we added is once you're setting up your restriction, you'll be able to define what is a space within a particular bay, and the system will calculate how many spaces, so how many bays basically are available within one long bay, I should say. So how many spaces you got in one long bay. So that long bay you see on my screen, according to the way the system is set up, I have 12 spaces available for those residents. Right. It's quite useful because the way some of the traffic orders are written is just from one point to another, not taking into account that this actually is a bay for 20 residents or 16 residents. So using the ParkMap system, you will now be able to generate some report to find out how many spaces are available for the resident for that particular zone, find out how many spaces available to them, and you can compare with the number of permits that's been issued and making sure you've got adequate spaces for the residents. Similarly, you can do the same thing with all the disabled bay. That'd be quite interesting to see how many spaces you've got available within your authorities. And if you can find out how many permits, blue badge holders, permits have been issued and compare those two numbers together, it'd be really interesting to see if they match up, if you've got more capacity or if you don't have enough capacity. Right, so this will be able to be done as long as you set up your system properly, which I will show you. Right, the bottom part of this information dialog box hasn't changed, it's just been more aligned. You can see the information about the street name, the side of the road, and if you do use text schedules, so if you're still writing your order, start from 0.20 meters from the junction with, etc., it will be here in that part of the dialog. This system is for map schedule, so I do not have that information. Instead, have the map schedule document available there, and if you click on M for map, that should display the map schedule for the particular restriction I clicked on, or part of it I clicked on anyway. Right, A stands for the article. If you've got any attachment, you can V for view the attachment, and there's no attachment, there's nothing I can do here. Here it's to attach a new picture or document to that particular restriction if you wanted to. And for those using, as I say, a text schedule, that's order document here, O for open, should open the order document. Right, so hopefully you like it. It's a lot more condensed than it used to be, and it makes it really easier to read the information that is probably the most important part of your ParkMap system. What is that restriction all about? Right, as always, you can right-click and select freeform polygon in order to generate a polygon around a particular street, like this one. Then select everything that is mostly within your polygon. You can clearly see it's been highlighted. Then right-click and report on a particular selection. Now, I will select the summary report because it's a slight modification that has been done to that particular report, which is actually one of the best reports as well. So if you've got a choice between all the report here, I would highly recommend you start with summary. And if you require more information about what's happening in that zone, or what type of parking is available in that zone, then you can drill down by selecting the detail format, which is quite a lengthy report. If I select summary, wait a little, here is the new, but not quite so new report for summary information, where you have the information about the different type of restriction you selected, which order it belongs to. It's still a crystal report, so I know there's still some improvement that can be done there, but it's better than it used to be. And if I just expand that so you can see it, so it tells you what type of car club, for instance, I'm looking at, car club permit VM01. And the length of that particular bay is 5.5 meters. And according to the system, that is catering for one space. So only one vehicle can park there, which seems about right for a car club. Usually it's only one. If you look now at the disable badge, it's probably not set up properly quite well because you don't have room for two, but the systems tell you that the way you set it up is under 9 meters, you can put 2 disable bay, which is definitely not set up properly. So I will show you how to change that so it doesn't say 2. It should be 12 meters to be allowed to actually have 2 disable bay. Right, and if it's a restriction that is not a parking bay, then obviously you have no information about spacing. Right. Another way to do this, so at the moment I selected an entire area. I did mention about selecting all the resident permit within a particular zone or selecting all your disable bay and finding out how many spaces you got available for disable badge holders or resident for the zone, the CPZ zone HHE or whatever zone you may have. To do that, you have to go through report, ParkMap select, confirm order. From there, select, for instance, disable badge holder only. I only got one type setup. Right? Look at this. I don't have any variation for disable badge holders in that training setup. That is unlikely to be the case on your live system. Once you clicked on one of those items at the top of this dialog, like loading only, that should show you all different variation, all different schedules for that particular restriction you clicked on. So if I click on no waiting, I'll see, oh, it's not so long of a list, but on your live system, I'm pretty sure those lists will be a lot longer than the one on my training setup. Right, so disable badge holder only. I want all of them. I don't care where they are. I want everything within my area. They're all selected. Then right click, report, summary, press OK. And according to this report, I've got 13 spaces available for disable badge holders within my area. So that's one of the new improvements. I hope you like this. I think it's quite helpful. Before you had to use that total value and divide it by 6.6 meters and find out how many you have. Now we're kind of helping you ever so slightly to do that. But it's also good if you got different wards or different parishes, you'll be able to generate those reports for those and you'll be able to find out if you got enough spaces. By the way, if you got any questions, please do feel free to use the chat in order to ask me anything, and I'll do my very best to answer all your questions. Right. So this is one of the biggest improvement. And the reason we've done that is because now as part of this API export for the TRO discovery project for the Department for Transport, this was one of the requirements. And also one of the requirements was to fit with how they categorize different type of restriction that are currently on the highway. They got their own terminology. So what we try to do is create some export routine that will translate whatever you got set up within your system so it can convert into whatever the DFT wants those restrictions to be called. So it's called an API report under reports. And if I just enable that, so uses, there's 2 projects. I don't know if you can see clearly on my screen. I hope you can, and I hope it's not too small. So basically here are the different fields set up within your ParkMap system and currently my ParkMap system. So I've got a lot of different things. And here the TRO discovery project from Department of Transport. And you can see clearly that the bus stump enter under a category they call bus operation purpose. So the same thing with another type of restriction that is set up within my ParkMap setup called bus stop clearway that falls under the same category as bus stand, sorry. And another project, APDS, which does a similar job as TRO discovery to make sure that all the different type of restrictions can be translated into a national database, and they got a slightly different way of wording the different type of restrictions. So there we go, and that fits into those categories. And the system will tell you if it managed to match up all your restrictions, so you can export them and then find out how many type of parking of some sort are available for all the authority within the UK. If there is some restriction that were not mapped, so basically the system, while it trying to convert your ParkMap into a format the same as a format from the DFT, then it will appear here saying like this system did not manage to do it. So you're going to have to manually tell the system where in those categories those restrictions you see in unassigned are supposed to be. Right, obviously we'll help you with that, and we'll have a lot of help file on how that's done. It only needs to be done once. And it's quite useful, and then you can generate some charts on how many restrictions you've got for different type of categories you see as per TROD. Right. Okay. So spaces, you're probably more interested in that. So I'm going to click on the padlock and show you how it's done. What is the password? It's a good question, isn't it? Ah, here's the password. So you all know now that when you're entering into ParkMap edit mode, you will need to go through the scheme in order to edit a particular proposed order. I've trained different people in the latest version of ParkMap, and you all came up with some very interesting idea of how to manage your schemes. Some of you use date, some of you use region within your authority, and some of them use a mix and match of both. So for instance, I'm taking the example of Essex, where they will use South Essex Partnership, and then a particular district they're working in, at Malden, and then 2020 for the order in that year. Make it nice and easy to find the information for particular traffic orders, especially if you've got quite a lot of orders and you've got a big system. Right, if your London borough is probably less relevant, so it will be a little bit smaller, but you can divide it, your borough, in different zones, and you can have the zone there and all the traffic orders that affect the particular zone in the bottom part of this dialog. Right, if I'm not updating anything just currently, and have a look at my parking restrictions. So hopefully you're all familiar now with this Explorer that allow you to have a look at different restrictions that was in the system. Remember that those group, parking bay, parking zone, others, no waiting and loading, all this is up to you to set them up. So you can delete them, you can recreate new ones, so you can order your restriction into different groups that makes sense to you, so you can find things very quickly without having to search for them. If you really want to search for them, then you still have the binocular available there right at the top, and then you can search for a particular type of restriction. I will go through the entire Explorer, to find whatever wording you put there. But if you have them grouped, then you won't have to do that. It'll make a lot more sense. And to create new groups, remember, it's as easy as clicking on static and add a group. Once you added a group, you can click on the restriction like our club and edit its details. And here you can move it to the group you created, as easy as this. Now you can also see the API group I just showed you in the report. And this is the different group how they are set up by TROD and where they should fit in. So this should be done automatically. And the few times, like in the report I showed you, where few things did not go according to plan, the system did not manage to assign to a particular group, you'll have to do that manually. Go through that list and make sure you select whatever it's supposed to be. Right, most importantly, the parking bays. So you will have to tell the system that what you set up here is a parking bay. It's obvious, it's car club, so that's definitely a parking bay. Make sure it's ticked. Then tell the system what is the space. So 5 is probably a little bit small, probably 5.5 meters will be better, but you can change that. And that will affect all the report I will subsequently run afterwards. It's also important to put echelon, because I'm fully aware that some of you use a lot of echelon bays, and obviously it's not 5.5 meter. The width for echelon bays is probably a lot shorter, 2 meters. And so if the system knows echelon, it will calculate in the space based on that. The system should know if it's parallel or echelon and make those calculations accordingly. Right, that's it. And that's how you set up your spaces. So they appear in your report, and you can do some really interesting report out of your ParkMap system. Right. Few new improvements for the data input. So you'll be pleased about this. I hope you are. I was quite pleased about it because it makes my training a lot easier. One of the most tedious parts of ParkMap, I'm not going to lie, is to do the data input and start entering all the information about the restriction and where they are, the time of enforcement, and which side of the road and all this. Right. So we're trying to automate most of it as much as possible. So you guys got less and less and less work to do. Don't get me wrong, you still got some work to do, but at least less and less using your ParkMap system. So this is how it will work now. So if I just create a brand new scheme, something random, like there, I'm going to call it Vincent, and it's a static order. Yeah, I'm not going to fill the rest of this information dialog, even if I should really. And since I am playing with car club base, I might as well do that. So the one I want to use is not in that list. I'm just going to right click on this and add a new schedule. Why not? So I'll show you how it's done. It's not in that list. I need to create a new one. Click on the two little dots, add, and that will be called car club permit. I'm trying to stick with the wording used there and then put a zone identifier for that particular car club permit. That could be webinar 01, the first one for that version 7.3, press OK, OK, and now it's all set up. So, right. Oops, sorry. Let me select it and I'll call it schedule 3004. Right, here we go. And here it is. Now, you may have noticed the way things are ordered here is probably by the schedule number. A lot of you don't use schedule number anymore. So you got a lot of X's. You got X101, X102, X103. And that might not be the best way to put things, especially when you're looking at time of enforcement. You may have things all over the place. So I got some Monday, Friday here, Monday to Friday here, and it might not be quite good. And you might not be able to find the restriction you want easily. So what I would recommend you to do is to click on the little clock there and change that so it's order by description. And by doing so, hopefully that won't work. No, that didn't work. I'll try again. I'll try alphabetically instead. And let's have a look at what happened for resident parking. No, so definitely need to by description. Let's try again. I'm trying to refresh my screen to force it to do it. And hopefully that works. Oh, yeah, sorry. I just realized why this one is not going with the other. It's because this is not done properly. You see, the wording is not the same for all of them. So either you put the zone code first, and all those ones should have a zone code first, or you put it last, but don't do a mix and match different things. Otherwise, well, when it orders by restriction descriptions, then it won't do it properly, only because there's a Z there. Right. Oh, also that one didn't work. I'll have a look at this, but it should work using this, and you should be able to sort them by description. Right, go back to that car club bay I wanted to plot. So if I click on it, click on the schedule, then click where the restriction applies, and from there to there. Right, a lot of things has been automated. That obviously comes from the fact you clicked on the schedule itself. So the system already know the time of enforcement, already know it's at any time, and it's car club permit, and know what type of permit it is. What is new in this version is you no longer have to put a street name. The street name will automatically be populated with the NHG details associated with it. So sometimes you may get a message, and I'm going to try to get that message by plotting and awaiting if you are too close to a junction. So there may be a system adapt aware that no waiting at any time, for instance, could be. And if that occurs, I didn't on that particular location, but you should get a little message that would be a floating tool tip that tells you, please check the road name, basically. So it's always worth, even if you don't have to do anything, to check that this is okay. For map schedule users, all you have to do is to select whatever side of the road you want that's not yet automated, bear with us, and then press OK, and it's done. Right, so plotting a restriction should be less and less clicking. I don't know what you think, but I think it's a lot better than what it used to be. Right, and that is pretty much new things that we created. Finally, there was a couple of comments on when you're doing the print preview. So I'm going to start the print preview. I'm going to reduce that scale to 500. You know, you can always use a shortcut as well. So if you wanted to create a print preview, you can use Ctrl+C on your keyboard, and that should work. You can have a nose point, and you can, if you wanted to, use summary sheet. I'll show you what that is, and then view frame. Right, make sure that what you're printing is inside that frame, which you can move. Make sure it's on your screen. And since I'm doing a double yellow over there, I might as well add another frame for that double yellow there, which I can then move. So it's nice and centered. Yeah, all right, yeah, that's centered. So I've got now 2 print generated for my proposed order, and then click print preview. Right, wait a little, it shouldn't be too long, and that should generate a printout. 2 printouts, since I created 2 frames for that particular area. Here it is. I've got my printout there. I'm just going to reduce it so I can see it a little bit better on my screen. It's very small on my side, right? Once you've got that particular map, you can use annotations, or you can add more. You can start plotting different things like polygon and line onto your screen. So if I want to plot, something, so before you were a bit limited in terms of what you could plot, but now, once you selected a text, you will be able to change that text and change the font. So I think that was one of the requirements for some of our users, to be able to change that and to vary the text and to add it. It was especially useful when the street name was missing. So you can add, for that particular template there, to give an idea of what that road is. So that could be Vincent Road, right? And then modify your text. So, oops, I moved everything around. That's better. And add that additional text, and you can add more things, just so when you're creating those maps, maybe for consultation purposes, it makes more sense. And then you can add even more information about that particular bay to tell members of the public that's what you're trying to implement. So that's what's new in the particular street. Once you've done that, you can go to the next map. Oops, something is missing with my north point. Bear with me, I'll be fine. I do not need Vincent Road in that particular plot. And here's my double yellow line. And I did take an option called summary sheet. And if I do that, yeah, that's a bit annoying. That should generate a printout with where the 2 different maps I created are within the authority or within the area that is affected by your proposed orders. It's quite useful, especially if you're working on orders that cover large area. And as always, you can click on PDF and save all those maps plus the summary sheets into one big PDF that you can then attach as part of your deposited document. No PDF. Don't ask me again. I'm fine. Okay. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I told you I won't be taking too much of your time. The purpose of this is really to give you a flavor of this version 7.3. If you think it's of interest to you and you're still running the previous version of ParkMap, just let us know so we can upgrade you to that version. I think the plan is to upgrade everybody around summertime, while we got time to do a bit more testing and all this. But if you think this version is could help you with your work, then let us know so we can upgrade you. Right, that's it. If you got any question, please fire them away and I'll do my very best to answer them all. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time today.